Oh, good morning. Greetings to you wherever you're watching me from, wherever you're listening to me from. I bring you greetings from the city of Lancaster here in Pennsylvania. And I also bring you greetings from Replica Church, where we say, Because you matter to God. Welcome to another episode of the program, Let's Talk Missions. My name is Mwat Asedeh, and I am going to be your host. Um, I want to thank you very much for all of the comments you left. Thank you very much, my sister Anawish. Thank you for your prayers. We truly appreciate it and we ask that you keep them coming. Thank you to my brother Sifri Samson. Thank you very much for the encouraging words. We truly appreciate it. We needed to continue to build topics and conversations and all that is required to keep this show coming. So thank you for keeping it alive. Thank you for all your questions. We really appreciate it. And having said that, naga kamar na tsokano tsuliyan dodo. Saboda I have the topic of last week. It has, it has made it very necessary that we answer some questions. So, what is so special about being called? That question crowns all of the questions and all of the thoughts and reflections that has come over within the week. What is so special about being called? I will attempt to answer that, but then, let me just give a brief recap as to what we have been able to do so far. We have established that mission of God is God's missions. It belongs to God. Secondly, the mission itself is for the salvation of creation, and then we've also established that the called are the agents of this mission. It has also become very important. Uh, I want to, we also talked about the mission, how we ended last session by saying we want to talk about the method, the missionary method. What is the best method that suits your calling? That is what I would love to talk about today. But I'm going to really try to answer the question of what is so special about being called. And if time permits us, then we can start talking about the missionary method, which one suits your location or which one suits your calling best. Having said this, I want to start by reading to you something that I wrote back then when I first sensed, that I have been called to service in missions. I hope you are blessed. I hope you'll be blessed by the words that I'm going to read out to you. It's a poem that I kind of started to turn into a song. And that goes to say, if you have the gift of musical production out there and you want us to work on turning this into a song or any of the things that I read here, please reach out and then we can be able to make something happen. I titled this, I Want to Be There. I want to be there. What does this life mean? Because I will live and die. Then I will stand before God's throne to give account of all one day. All I am living for is to hear you say, Well done, good and faithful servant. Come into my rest and enjoy the reward for you. So, will it be money, pleasure, or fame? All the powers and thrones that is going to earn me your reward? I am sure whosoever walks with you, you will always reward. And the little you help me do will be precious in your sight. So I want to be there to put a smile on someone's face. I want to be there to tell someone you care. I want to be there to show someone your love, to tell them of your love, to show that you are God, I want to be there. Thank you very much for listening. If you are blessed, thank God. If you have any question, if you disagree, let us know. That's why we're here. Let's talk missions. So, in answer to the question of what is so special about being called, I want to say just one thing about the specialty of being called, and then in no particular order, say some other things around it, which I feel is important in helping clarify this issue of why being called is so special. Now, just a little bit about myself. My own experience is that I felt while I was much younger, I'm still young, by the way, but while I was still, I think, a teenager, I felt I would love to do something as a missionary. I think I read the story of David Livingstone. It inspired me a great deal about the exploits of missionaries. So I just felt I want to do missions. I want to be a missionary. But it wasn't very clear to me until about my second year into the study at the University of Jos that it started to become clear that I might need to reconsider what it means for me to do missions. So during that time, I attended a conference that was organized by the Student Life Movement, the student arm of the Campus Crusade for Christ, which is known here in the States as, Campus Crusade for Christ here in the States, but in Nigeria as the Great Commission Movement. Yes. So I attended this conference, which is titled Movement Everywhere Destiny. That is the conference which was held at the BCA in Barakin Ladi. So I attended this conference, and the speaker was Reverend Tim Mwangi from Nairobi. I think I still have those details because of the specialty of that time. So Dr. Tim Mwangi spoke from the Great Commission verse, Matthew 28:18-20, but with such clarity that I had not heard before. And I could clearly at that time hear, hey, this is what you have been called to. So at that time, I was overwhelmed by this excitement of being called into the service of the King of Kings. That is the mindset that I had. That was just how I felt when I sensed the clarity of this call. I felt, wow, I have not just been called to salvation. I have been called again further to the service of the King of Kings, of the Lord of Lords. That feeling, I was beaming, I was excited, I was so joyful. And then they made the altar call. If you are willing to commit your life, I just said before anybody goes out, I'm going to be the first out there, because that was how I felt. I felt honored. I felt, how can somebody like me be used of God who is so good? So I went up. People were crying, feeling as, I don't blame anybody for crying. I even gave someone beside me my handkerchief so that they can dry their tears. I was just excited. I thought I was crazy or something. I was so excited, you would think I'm on drugs. I was just so excited that God has called me into his service, and he has made it really clear that he wants me. The entire picture is not clear as to this is what I want you to do, or I just know that I have been called to service. So that's a little bit about my experience. And then from that moment on, it's not, like I said, it's not been like entirely clear, but one thing leads to another, and you just get one step after another. I've been understanding the nature of the call. You understand today, tomorrow you're like, God, what's going on? Am I on the right path? But then as time goes on, you continue to understand, you continue to see more and appreciate more, especially when you stay connected to the caller. So I'm just sharing this as part of my experience as to why I felt, you know, special. So now imagine, I want you to also imagine with me the scenario of the call of to, I mean, Abraham, for instance, the life of Abraham. Imagine how Abraham was, how Abraham must have felt at that time. Now, this is not to say that Abraham was as excited as I was, or that any other person I'm going to use for this cause was excited, but imagine the mystery, imagine the power of the caller. So I feel the entire problem of the issue of this being called is not from the caller, neither is it from the work. It starts with the person being called. So imagine Abraham in such a time that he lived, and imagine the way he communicated with God, that he was confident enough to take that step and say he trusts that the God who he has not seen before was calling him. How did God talk to him at that time? We really don't know. But yet this man was confident and he followed. Now come down to the New Testament and see how, imagine the scenario of the person who called the first disciples when they were in their boat. Jesus didn't say much, and we're not even told if they knew him before. He just came over and said, "Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men." And what did they do? We're not told whether they had a meeting or they had a forum of discussion with their family. We're just told they dropped all they were doing and followed him. It goes to tell you that there is something about this person who is doing the call. The issue that needs clarification lies with the person who is being called. So, some of the things that I said I'm going to say around this issue is that, like I made mention at first, the specialty of the calling is with the caller. That is where the specialty of being called comes from. But then, as far as we who are being called are concerned, your call is unique to you. God's call for you, for me, it came differently. For some, it had to do with struggle because we are all unique. We are all individually and uniquely made. Some of those who went out that day when the altar call was made for those who would love to commit their lives to service of God, they might be going through some trouble at that time. So there is no need for you to judge and say, hey, judge anybody. It is the way everybody has been wired to see things. So understand that your call is being unique. And then do not look to someone to ascertain your call for you. Do not let somebody be the one who will determine, hey, you are called to this or you are called to that. Ask for counsel from people, like I advised the last time. It's very important. But ultimately, depend on that conviction that comes between yourself and your caller. That will help bring about the specialty of being called to service. And then connect with what you are happy doing. I think it's very, very important. Being called is not a death sentence. It should be done with joy and excitement. When you understand, when the understanding comes that, hey, the caller is not a human being who will lie and change his mind. The caller is not somebody who is afraid of saying he will do what he will do. When it comes to, when the understanding of the caller is the one who is capable of sustaining, who has life in his hands, who does what he wants to do, when he wants to do it, how he wants to do it, when there is that understanding, I don't think there is going to be any need for one to be sad that he or she or they have been called to the service of God. Let me not belabor this point. I'm going to head on. Then, another thing I think important to say is, do not compare or compete with others. That is one of the problems that makes some people call themselves even into this service. And Actually, you cannot call yourself into this. You have to be called by somebody. So when you compete or compare, you see that, whoa, somebody is having these things as fruits of his ministry. You feel this person is doing this. You want to, you feel, I am supposed to, I think I have more potential than this person. Why is he the one doing? Then I want to do it. Or you feel called, of course, and you have answered the call, but then you are like, why am I not seeing results? Because you are trying to compare with other people. But when you look within you to seek to understand what is this calling of my life at this time, the fruits of our labors are different. Remember the different parts of the farming? Somebody sows, somebody waters, and God gives the harvest. So do not seek to compete or compare your labor or compare your calling with another person's calling. Look deep inside and try to ascertain the reason as to why you feel this is what God has called you to. This leads me to say, be faithful at what you feel convinced God has given you to do at that time. When you have been able to understand or to just catch a glimpse, a mentor told me, he said, this work of call is a work of faith. And it's like the Psalms describe it. Thy word is a light to my feet and a lamp to my path. It is two different type of light. You get to see where you place your feet the next moment, and then you need to depend on the bigger light to see the big picture. So you take one step at a time, because the light itself is going to cast farther away and you cannot be able to see everything clear from where you are. So you depend on the light that you have, where you are taking one step at a time in the direction you are convinced God is leading. So be faithful at what you have been convinced God has given you to do at that time. Now, God's call is not a hard and fast rule. Sometimes the assignment actually changes. I've had this issue about, does God's call change? Why is he doing this and now he is doing that? The central focus will always remain the same, that you are called to do the purpose of God. Take, for instance, the assignment was given, somebody can be a husband. And then when he has a child, he doesn't change from being that husband. It is just an addition to the call, that another calling is to be a father at this time. You might be a teacher today, and then tomorrow God will need you, say, in the marketplace, or the way around. Maybe you're a marketplace, you're a businessman who becomes very good, and then God feels, hey, I need you to teach some people in a formal setting how to go about doing this. So from marketplace, you just become a teacher. And so does that mean the call has changed? No. The call is central, but the time actually can depend. So it can depend on what God needs of you at that particular time. So don't be hung on the idea that God's call is just one nature. If I am called to be a pastor today and tomorrow I feel so deeply, I feel, hey, I want to do business. And then I am starting to try this business. Hey, what is the problem? Why? If you want to be a pastor, be a pastor. If you want to be, I have heard this severally, but that is not, that is a misconception from the understanding of what God's call is upon our lives. So, do you feel called to be a business person? Be happy about it and celebrate it, and just let God lead you. Do you feel being called to be a teacher? Hey, do you feel being called to be somebody who provides services for people? What do you feel at that moment? What do you feel? It's very important. And I keep saying feel, feel, feel. It is not dependent upon your feelings. I need to make that point clear also. It is not entirely dependent upon your feeling at that time or at whatever time. It comes from the conviction of knowing that God is leading you. It comes from the conviction of knowing that God is directing you, that from that connection that you have with God. So it is very important that you maintain that connection between the called and the caller. And that is when the calling is going to become clear. If you have any question, if you have any confusion, if you have any doubts, if you have anything to really say about this or clarification, whatever you have in your mind about this issue of being called or the calling, please let us know in the comment section and we will seek to talk some more about it. I truly think at this point, there is no need to spend so much time. I would rather continue and try and make the connection between what is so special to of be what is so special about being called, and then attach it to what I had desired that we're going to talk about today, the method that suits your calling. So the instruction to reach the whole world came from Jesus. The instruction is to reach the whole world. Right from the call of Abraham, there has been indication that the call is global in nature. It took time, but over the time from the call of Abraham, it gave signs such that, hey, this call is not just for one particular type of people. The call was all inclusive because proselytes were welcomed into the Jewish race, even to the point of being included in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. So it goes to say this call which has been given out is a global, it's a call that encompasses all. Jesus also said to his disciples, this call is for you to go into all the nations. Again, in Revelation, we get a glimpse or we have an idea, a peek into the future. We are told that people from every nation and tongue praised God at the end. Hallelujah. But there is still a method to which this thing is to be done. So you see, Jesus said to them in Acts chapter 1, verse 8, he says, he told them not to leave Jerusalem, to wait for the Spirit of God. But when the Spirit has come upon you, he says, you will be my witnesses. And then he said, this witness has a method. It's going to start in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the earth. It is a call with a method. So, I want to pause at this moment to answer the question that was laid one time by a viewer that asked if we should do cross-cultural missions, or how can we even measure it if we're successful. So to address the question of if we should do mission cross-culturally, I feel mission from its inception is cross-cultural in nature. So with the permission of a friend, I want to share his story, of course, without mentioning name or wherever this took place. You see, this friend felt that God was leading him to start a church in a particular place where he found himself. And then he sought to, he, of course, prayed and got in contact with people. And one of the people he got in contact with was a native of where he was, because he was not within his own context. So he spoke to this senior colleague or senior person who actually gave him the indication that, hey, let's talk about it. I can help you. I think I have some resources that can be able to help you achieve God's calling for your life at this time. So this friend who has been called to start a church in this particular context went to meet with this other senior colleague. But then at the meeting, this senior colleague talked him down and said, who told you you can be able to do missions in a different place? If you want to do missions, go back to your country. You cannot do mission in this country. You know, it was so dehumanizing. Go back to your country and just do missions where you're called to. This also brings to mind another story is that the old prophet, when the founders of Equa came to establish, when they came to, what's it called? When they came to set Equa, when they first brought the gospel, at the time they did in the late 1900s, they encountered a prophet a prophet in Lagos who told them that they cannot be able to carry out this mission in this place because they are foreigners, and this land is not a place for foreigners. It is called a graveyard and whatnot, all that he would say. He said their children might not see, their children's children might not see where they want to go. Maybe their children's children's children. I can't remember exactly the accuracy of the story, but it was a foreshadowing of doom upon their mission. So, to people, to people who hold on to the mindset that mission cannot or should not be a cross-cultural practice, I want to say that this mindset is myopic in its nature and in its thinking and from its foundation. It is true there is a method to the mission, and that is what we had said about to talk about, what we had kind of set out to talk about. But it's very important that we point out to the fact that going out to do mission cross-culturally is something that has been instituted from the very origin of the mission of God itself. So do not feel discouraged that in one way or another you are feeling called to a place that you don't even know. Do not feel discouraged if you are participating or partnering with somebody who is doing mission in a different community. You do not have to withhold your support or withhold your prayers because you feel this one is just daring, he's just going somewhere. No, the part of the call is to the whole world. And whether you do it or not, God is going to find vessels to reach people in different areas at different times for different purposes, so that the fulfillment of his word, which says the whole world would hear of this gospel, will be fulfilled, and no man can be able to stop that. So it is important that you streamline your thinking to the understanding that this mission is cross-cultural, this mission is global, and you ought to join in the movement of the mission that is global. So, depending on the call that you have, time is gone. We will, I guess, maybe in the next episode, we will explore some sections or classification of the calls I feel there are, and then, how each one plays in their role very well. As for the cross-cultural, we're going to talk about what are the mission, what are the methods. For the cross-cultural missionaries, we're going to say what are the methods that you need to be able to succeed in your mission, to do it well as you ought to. And as for local missionaries, what method do you need? And as an individual who feel called to be a parent at this time, who feel called to different things that we are called to where we are, all of us who have answered the first general call, what method do we need? How can we fulfill our mission where we are? How can we fulfill our mission in the area of our calling? That is what we're going to seek to address in our next episode, so that we don't take all the time today and then accumulate too much. Let's regurgitate over this that we have shared so far. Let's ask questions, send question privately, or if you want to make comment, go ahead and talk about it. Let us know what you think about the specialty of being called. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. I hope that next week, same time, same station, we will be able to come together again and talk about what missionary method do you need as a missionary where God has called you. Thank you very much for your attention. Have a wonderful week and have a good day wherever you are. If you're not, remember, once there is life, there is hope. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you and stay blessed because you matter to God.